Hi folks, I'm Spencer, and on today's episode of Cult Mania we're doing another chat about soundtracks, because we can. This time all of them are on vinyl. I basically just this morning went through my soundtrack collection and just pulled out some ones that I think are interesting to talk about. So that's what we're going to do. I haven't actually scripted this episode like I normally do, so I mean it will probably go horribly wrong, but you are getting like the sort of raw, uncensored, unfiltered version of my opinions. So that's good. I mean, yeah. And as there's no real other preamble to be done, let's just get on with it. I'm going to take them out the sleeves so they don't get all reflecty on the light that I've got there. Okay, so our first record for today is one of my favourite films, Tetsuo. This is a weird bootleg of the album because there isn't an official release of the Tetsuo soundtrack, at least not on vinyl. This is a sort of weird combo of the soundtracks for Tetsuo 1, the Iron Man, and Tetsuo 2, Body Hammer, which is a fantastic title. Yeah, like I said, it's a bootleg. They're strange. Not sure about with Body Hammer, but all the stuff that's on this for Tetsuo 1, they're all reworked versions. They're more modern sounding. They're nowhere near as harsh as some of the stuff on there. And I wasn't too pleased with that the first time, especially because they're not in order either. They sort of jump between 1 and 2. And then I was like, oh, I don't like that it's these new edits. But actually, they're really good if you can distinguish them from being the versions that you know and love from the film. Yeah, there's like some of the synth work is much more sort of bassy. It's a lot less harsh, a lot less sort of metallic. Scratch Killer, my favourite track from Tetsuo 1, isn't on here, which is a bit irritating because like Lost is on here, which is a bit like a chiller track. Oh, you don't get the actually none of the soundtracks for Tetsuo have the sort of weird saxophone track from the first one, which is a bit weird. Not even the sort of rips from the film seem to have that. That's a bit odd. But no, I mean, like I said, it's a bootleg. There's a sort of cool innie sleeve thing with a little bio of Chu Ishikawa that did the score. And like the bump, it tells you how long the films are. Don't know why you need to know that. And it's just on good old black vinyl. I do like that the little picture-y thing. The little picture is of the dude from Tetsuo, and the hole is right through his nostril. So when you put your metal spindle through the middle, it goes through his nose, and it looks like a thing from Tetsuo. That's neat. I don't know if I held that up the right way. Who knows? But no, it's a good way of listening to it. I think that there is a box set, but it goes for stupid money. Now it's only on CD, that has Tetsuo 3 in it as well, so you get the 9 Inch Nails track. But no, I mean, the Tetsuo scores are brilliant. It's got all the best ones from Body Hammer, because I don't think the film isn't as good as the first one. I watched it yesterday, and I actually think it's probably one of Tsukamoto's worst films. But I mean, the score's still banging in it. And yeah, you get all the best ones. Dinosauroid or whatever. It's just a cool title. Oh, it's got some pictures, but they're all from the first film. But yeah, that was probably out of focus. Actually, they're relatively blurry. But yeah, it's a good one. Put it back in the sleeve. Japanese little trip through soundtracks is Yamashiro Shoji's score for Akira. Not that these are all going to be Japanese, but we're just in a little Japanesey section because I bloody love Japanese films, if you haven't noticed. Akira's a really good one. I mean, I bought this record before I'd actually seen Akira because I'd read so much stuff about Akira and about how good the music is. Tell you what, it's really bloody good. It made me pretty much just desperately want the film straight after. It's got a nice little bit of bump about the film. It's got quite a lot of the plot actually on the back. It's weird, the liner notes are on the back as well, so it tells you, you know, like, that Kaneda is a dynamic piece that suggests the spirit of a festival and the life of the healthy, delinquent adolescents who centralise around the main character, Kaneda. Yeah, that's all on the back for some reason, which is a bit strange. I mean, that track is absolutely brilliant. I mean, the use of percussion in the Akira soundtrack is absolutely wonderful. I mean, you've got the sort of chanting vocals, those sort of weird wind chimey type. I don't actually know what they are. That's on. I think it's Tetsuo the track, but I mean, it's a wonderful soundtrack that is so sort of distinct. I can't think of anything else. I mean, I'm sure there are things that have tried to rip off the sound of Akira, but it's just as distinct as the film itself. And I mean, I'm not an anime person at all. I've tried many times to be one, and Akira is one of the only sort of anime things that really stuck with me, and has stuck with me since seeing it. I play this quite a lot, especially now that I've seen it, because you know, match up the images, listening to. That's the thing. It paints a lovely picture of what the film is because it's so sort of evocative. And yeah, the only problem is this soundtrack isn't the full soundtrack. Like it said, it's the symphonic suite Akira, and I mean, there's a sort of weird. I mean, again, it's just black vinyl. There's some long ass tracks on here. It does come with this, which gives you a little profile of the guy that did the music, and when you look at his discography, there is another Akira release from the same year, but I don't know. I don't know whether this is just like technically an EP or what. I mean, I'd quite like a remastered version of the soundtrack with everything on it. I keep wondering whether, because you've only got half his face there, whether you could put, if you had the other one, do they sit together? It's weird. It doesn't have any of the sort of pop. You don't get Tokyo Shoeshine Boy on this, but you do get Tokyo Shoeshine Boy on the soundtrack for Isle of Dogs, the Wes Anderson film. This is an absolutely wonderful soundtrack. This was picked by my wife because she absolutely loves this soundtrack. We play it all the time. It's awesome. It's another very, very percussive soundtrack. A lot of really, really cool drumming. It's a soundtrack, again, it's very similar to Akira actually, in that you put it on and you just start hearing, you just start seeing the scenes. It just sort of paints a lovely picture. I find that if I stand up and start walking round while this soundtrack is on, I sort of start walking like I'm in stop motion. Because I'm sad like that. Whilst most of the music here is composed by Alexander Desplat, like I said, you do get a bit of pop scoring. There's Tokyo Shoeshine Boy, which is just an absolute bop. I'm sure it's in this film because it's in Akira. There's some other stuff. There's a song by, you'll have to bear with me here, I Won't Hurt You by the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band, which, if you've seen the trailer for the film, it's in that. It's a really nice little sort of weird chill song where the beat is like a heartbeat. It's experimental pop from the West Coast, I would like to think. There's some stuff from Seven Samurai. There's some music from like that crappy Rudolph film that everyone always raves about. You know, like the holiday special where it's stop motion. Because again, you know, it's Wes Anderson. He'd got to throw in some pop scoring stuff, even though he had a really good score to work with. But no, it's just a really fun. It's a brilliant film. Yeah, Meg made a good choice. It's properly good. I mean, what is really to be said about the soundtrack for Clockwork Orange that hasn't already been said? It was probably one of the key pieces of music that introduced the world to synthesizers, especially in Britain. I know you'd had like Doctor Who by this, but you know, this was sort of synthesizers became proper with this soundtrack. I mean, you have the Wendy Carlos reworking of, you know, Beethoven and all that stuff, and it all sounds so incredibly wonderful. It still sounds fresh, and nothing. It's another one of those soundtracks where it's similar to like Akira, where you could so easily try to copy the style that this is, but it wouldn't work. It just has some sort of bizarre quality all of its own, and it's just wonderful. I mean, you can listen to this any day. It's great for writing too. It's just wonderful. I mean, this isn't the best copy. I mean, there's a horrible split down the top. It's a proper old copy. I bought this for not very much money, but I mean, it still sounds fine, even if someone wrote some numbers. S4172, whatever that means, but it still plays well. It's a great soundtrack for a great film. Probably actually, this is I don't try and say this very often, but it is a film where if you didn't have this score with it, probably wouldn't be the same film. Really, it wouldn't work quite as well. They sort of, you can't separate them. £6. £6 was what I paid for it. Well worth it. Thank you to Vinyl and Vintage in Wolverhampton. That's where I got this from. Bargain. It's actually where I got the next one from as well, which is Ennio Morricone's The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. Because you can't not own this, you have to have this on vinyl because it's too good not to. This got re-released. All of the Morricone scores for the Dollars trilogy got re-released last year. They were going to be for Record Store Day, but then Record Store Day didn't happen on time, and I think they just put them out anyway. Actually, I was thinking about getting the others, but I wasn't going to upgrade this because I like it on sort of old vinyl. It's got something about it. I mean, it's like a mono recording of it. Still in great nick. Plays lovely. There are a couple of dusty, spotty moments on it, but it's a weird one in that actually it probably sounds better with surface noise because it just sounds more like the film. Oh, you could get it on stereo back in the day. This is just the mono version. But no, I mean, Ecstasy of Gold is fantastic. It's no wonder that Metallica have come out to it for years. But I mean, the main theme is wonderful. It's all wonderful. Morricone, you know, had so many great things, and I think in a way it's a shame that the Western stuff is generally what he's remembered for. But I think actually there is a reason, and it's that this stuff is so good that you just have to. I'm not a massive fan of the artwork, I'm perfectly honest. I know I haven't commented on the artwork on the other ones, but it's a bit weird. The faces are a bit mangled. It is slightly sellotaped together, I think. But no, brilliant score. I mean, you don't need me to describe the soundtrack for Good, the Bad and the Ugly because you know it because it's become part of every, you know, even if, you know, you can learn it from watching The Simpsons or whatever, it's just part of movie DNA now. As is the film, but the soundtrack, it's in everything. You can't, there is probably so much modern music that if these scores didn't exist, or wouldn't sound anything like they do. It's just wonderful. Again, it's another one you can just put on any day and enjoy it. Something you probably wouldn't be listening to every single day is the soundtrack for Petey Wheatstraw, the Rudy Ray Moore film. I've got this and I've got Dolomite as well, but I mean this is the best. It's the best Rudy Ray Moore film, and it's the best soundtrack. Mainly for just how in the theme for it, they just go Petey Wheatstraw every now and again, and it's wonderful. This was actually one of the first written reviews I did was for Petey Wheatstraw over on Corky Movies. It's a fantastic film, and I mean, is it a fantastic score? Probably not. Nat Dove and the Devils, handy because it's about the Devil's son-in-law, did the score, and it's not up to the quality of a lot of blaxploitation scores because they had people you'd heard of do them. You know, you've got Isaac Hayes doing Shaft, and is it Trouble Man? Is that the one that Marvin Gaye did? Black Caesars, James Brown, you know. Whereas I don't know who Nat Dove and the Devils are, but they made a very entertaining score. It's just... Ooh, someone tooted. No, it's just proper funky, you know, blaxploitation stuff with those great vocals. And do you have any of that is the only thing. I mean, actually, I do like that there is just a track on here called Junkie Chase. But the only thing that is perhaps missing, although I don't actually remember if he does much of it, is there's none of his Rudy Ray Moore's like stand-up on this, because obviously that was what he did. He did the albums. It is a shame that perhaps none of that's on here. So I'm sure he does do some of that in this. Yeah, must do. So you don't get any of that, but you do get the theme for Petey Wheatstraw, which is it's worth owning the entire album just to be able to sample or listen to them go, Petey Wheatstraw. I really need to get the soundtrack for Human Tornado, so I've got like the big three. They didn't have it. I got this in Manchester, and they had both this and Dolomite, and I was like, yes. But I was a bit sad they didn't have the Human Tornado because it is another classic. Definitely not a classic is the next film, which is Surf Nazis Must Die. Fantastic title, fantastic soundtrack actually. Not a very good film. An entertaining film, I'll give it that. But its soundtrack is actually awesome. The soundtrack is by John McCallum. It is a very 80s. This is actually like, I think this is more of an 80s score. Like, it's what you imagine every 80s score actually sounds like, more than most of them actually do. I mean, it is fantastic. It's very similar to the Tetsuo thing of, I don't think the versions on this album are actually the versions from the film. There's something ever so slightly different. That, or they were just mixed really poorly in the film, and they're better on here. I didn't, unfortunately, get the Blood on the Waves coloured vinyl. It's just black. There's a lot of nice liner notes on the inside. Oh my god, it's a really stiff sleeve, so it's one of those hard ones to get the record back in. Get in. Yeah, lots of nice liner notes from pretty much actually everyone that was involved in the film. Yeah, it's proper squelchy synth stuff with there's some really high-pitched guitar, which is better on this than it is in the film. It's sort of painful in the film from memory. But no, it's again, if you were sort of writing something that was set in the 80s, this is a fantastic score to listen to put you in that mind frame. Also, just a really cool album cover. I'd have that on the wall. It's cool. It's got Chrome Skull on it. Who doesn't want Chrome Skulls? I wish my skull was chrome. The only thing I kind of wish is I'm not normally a fan of dialogue being put on soundtrack albums, but I think this would really benefit from it because the film has so many corking crap lines that it would be really good to actually have those on here, but it doesn't. I think you might get something from like the opening bit, like a bit of dialogue, but you sorry, there were strange noises happening and I thought someone had broken in. They hadn't. It's just the neighbours. Yeah, I can't really remember what I was saying, but listen listen to Surf Nazis Must Die. You don't have to have watched the film. You might be better off just listening to the soundtrack. You'll picture a much more exciting film. Taking things into a sort of more chilled but slightly more frightening area is Jeff Barrow and Ben Salisbury's soundtrack for Annihilation. This is a fantastic soundtrack. I've played this to death. Either in headphones, it's good walking music, or on vinyl. It's a lovely vinyl, this. It's sort of like the Shimmer. It's all purpley, like the Shimmer from the film Annihilation. I'm not going to hold the cover up too much of this because it's a bit spoilery, which I don't know why they put a spoilery image on the cover of the album. Bit weird, but it's a lovely score. I'm pretty sure, because there's a lot of stuff on this soundtrack that sounds electronic, but there's a lot of it that isn't. I think The Alien might be like the only track on it that is. I know people weren't too happy because there's some messing around that went on. I don't think it's something like it's not the full track or something. I don't know. People never seem to be too happy when they talk about the soundtrack version of that track for reasons. But it's a lovely score. There's a lot of fantastic acoustic guitar. And if anyone who's seen the film knows that sort of mutation change is a key theme within it. And you get this sort of repeated guitar theme that slowly, like, notes get added, or it's slightly off tempo at some point, or just these little changes where you hear sounds over and over again, but it's just altered, and it fits really well with the themes of the film and sort of how the plot has progressed. It's really lovely, and at times it's really relaxing, and then there are times when like some of the vocals kick in slightly and it becomes so haunting and frightening. It's again, I think the film is brilliant, and I think it's really quite unsettling in places, and I think the score does so much to do that. I think the swimming pool on side 2, that's properly spooky. I actually used sort of the way some of the sound on that track is, I used when I did Nightmare Trip recently, a sort of wailing, moany vocal on it. It is fantastic. If you buy this on vinyl, it's at 45. I always forget. I always put it on at 33, and then I'm like, oh, this track's really slow. The thing is, because it's instrumental, it takes a while, and then you think, I've played half the side at the wrong speed. I think the first time I played it all at the wrong speed. I was like, this isn't how I remember it sounding. It's because I played it all at the wrong speed. That's always fun. Continuing our sort of chilled out soundtrack section, we're going with James Newton Howard's Nightcrawler soundtrack, which is another favourite of Meg's, and it's hard to think why it wouldn't be, because it's wonderful. It's got this sort of shoegazy vibe to it. It's on really jazzy vinyl. Hang on, hold this up properly. I think it was like Street Lamp or something was what they sold it as. Very cool. Yeah, it's got this sort of shoegazy vibe. There's a lot of guitar. A lot of guitar mixed with sort of synth. Some of it is a bit rocky. The last track is especially weird, that plays over the credits because it suddenly just turns into a rock song, and I'm not the biggest fan of that. But it's a great soundtrack that really, it's great for listening to at night. I mean, the film is amazing and has some of the best night photography I can think of in a film. And if you just stick the soundtrack on late at night, it just does something. It just works magically. I don't really understand it. This is something I've noticed. I don't understand why music's good. I just know that it is. But no, I think it is that it's sort of disconnected from what you expect. Because, I mean, there are some propulsive moments, you know, there are car chasey moments in the film, there are crashes and getting to crime scenes and stuff. But I don't know, it's just some sort of, it's just a lovely ambience. It definitely takes some notes from the score for Crash, the David Cronenberg film. There's definitely some similarities in it. But, I mean, that makes sense. Again, car crashes. But no, it's just lovely music to have on. I mean, it's a lot of short tracks, which I'm not always the biggest fan of. But again, I think because a lot of them are quite relaxed and quite chill, you sort of just ebb and flow between them. It's lovely. And lastly, something that isn't lovely, but is one of the best soundtracks that I can think of, and was mentioned in the comments of the last time I talked about soundtracks. The Greasy Strangler. Sorry for the penis. By Andrew Hung, this is a fantastically annoying score. It was purposefully made clearly to be irritating because you have these weird high-pitched voices throughout it, just making noises, saying things, and being irritating. But I absolutely love it. It's one of the only soundtracks for a film that's actually relatively funny to listen to. It's on pink vinyl. Gotta love pink vinyl. And it is great. It's a really good. When I worked in an office, I mean, I work in an office now, but I can't put headphones in. If I had something really dull or mundane to do, I would put on the Greasy Strangler soundtrack, because instantly your mundane task becomes surreal and odd, and it fits perfectly. It just adds a weird layer to doing things that you don't really want to do. You know, you got to fill out a spreadsheet, listen to the Greasy Strangler soundtrack, and it becomes fun. And yeah, it's almost like it sort of points out how stupid and monotonous your job is, because the soundtrack kind of does that. It's just wonderful. And I mean, the two versions of Fizzy Bath that are on here, and like Gulp or Oily Grapefruit, they're sort of dancey in the weirdest way. I mean, you couldn't play them at a club or anything, but it would be fun to try. I also like the stereo little logo. It's a penis. Because there's lots of penis in the film. I'm surprised that there are no tracks that indicate penis. But no, it's making me laugh thinking about the soundtrack. That's how good it is. Although I will say, not listening for everyone. And there we go, that was 10 soundtracks that I think are really cool, or really interesting, or really different, or other things that you could say that they are. Let me know in the comments what you think of these soundtracks. If there are any soundtracks you'd like to recommend me to listen to, go ahead. I will probably listen to them because I'm a big soundtrack nerd. I plan on doing some more of this. I've got a video planned for some point down the line, talking about pop scoring soundtracks more in depth. It's just taken me a while because I'm trying to make sure that I don't just do obvious ones. But that will be coming. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what your favourite soundtracks are, what you think of these ones. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any more videos. And I shall see you next time.